So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our talk on FinTech in South Asia, followed by a virtual mixer between LSE alumni in India and Pakistan. Today's event is jointly hosted by the LSE Lahore Alumni Chapter and the LSE Alumni Association of Mumbai and Western India. I am Ankit Modi, the events coordinator, and I am joined today by my fellow committee members.
Hello, everybody. I'm Amrita Bhatia Babur, and I'm the chairperson of the LSE Alumni Association of Mumbai and Western India. And Sharon, do you want to go
Hi,
next?
everyone. I'm Salansh Tikku. I'm the vice chair of the LSE Alumni Association of Mumbai and Western India.
Hi, I'm Sonia. I'm the communications coordinator.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sharon Agarwal, the Students and Recent Graduates Coordinator for the LSE Alumni Association of Mumbai and Western India.
So as you all know, this weekend, both our countries celebrate the commencement of the 75th year of our independence. As students at LSE, which one of us here would not have talked about cricket or Bollywood or gone for a meal of home food at a restaurant, most likely run by Bangladeshis, with a friend from the other country? And yet, sadly, after becoming alumni, most of us have probably lost those connections. And the current situation, I think, can best be summed up here. The head of one of our LSE alumni chapters in India sits on a government tea board and thought she would not be able to attend today's event because it might need a clearance from the Ministry of External Affairs. So we have a long way to go and much more can be done. Our hope is that this event is the start of a longer-term effort between LSE alumni in India and Pakistan to be in touch, collaborate, and cooperate in the future. I will now hand over to Mariam Khokar, head of the LSE Lahore Alumni Chapter.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Ankit and committee members. Welcome all to the first collaborative event of LSE Alumni Chapter Lahore and LSE Mumbai and LSE Alumni Association Mumbai and Western India. I'm Mariam Khokar, Lahore chapter leader. I graduated from LSE in 2007 with a master's in international employment relations and human resource management. Pakistan and India at 75 today, I hope that this initiative can begin a new relationship between LSE alumni from both countries, where we open up conversation on this forum, share experiences, and learn from each other. Leading the FinTech discussion today, we have two highly accomplished speakers from LSE alumni community, Mr. Saleem Ahmad from Pakistan and Mr. Kapil Patil from India. Kapil Patil is the founder of Microfinance AI, which provides AI-powered tools for borrowers to make microcredit simple and digital. Saleem Ahmad is a seasoned finance professional. He's a senior advisor to Affinity, the world's largest applied artificial intelligence company, and co-founder of 47 Ventures, which is the first international VC fund focused on Pakistan. He's the chairman of National Incubation Center at Lahore University of Management Sciences. 5 years ago, the FinTech story centered on America and China. Today, the location of activity is changing, and the FinTech hype is surrounding the founders of startups in India and Pakistan. Let's begin today's conversation. Over to you, Saleem and Kapil.
Well, hello, everyone. Well, happy Independence Day to our friends in Pakistan and advanced independence greetings to our dear friends in India. Ankit and Mariam, thank you so much for organizing this forum for an exchange and just mixing up stuff that we easily did back at LSE, and I'm glad that we're taking this opportunity in the virtual world to at least get together and hopefully do so in person very soon. So thank you for having me.
Hey, good evening, good morning, everyone. It's truly a pleasure to connect with both the community from India and Pakistan. We shared a lot of meals, hall meetings, conversation about, commonalities, and good to get on a virtual platform after almost 1.5 years spending into the London. Yeah, I look forward to this conversation. Yeah.
That's great. So how do we want to do this? Kapil, do you want to run through some ideas on the fintech landscape in India, and in particular, what you've been up to since leaving LSE?
Yeah, sure. Like even we can start with a brief career journey, which is like you've been like exemplary work on a different fintech AI domains. So we can start up with our potential career journey, which led to the LSE as well as fintech space. So let me start with mine, and then we can followed by yours, and then we can have a conversation on top of that. Yeah, sure. So hi everyone. I spent almost 8 years in India. Also got an opportunity to look through the Bangladesh and Nepal's market. I primarily work on like micro enterprises, access to finance, work with the banks and fintech. A lot of people, when they see my profile, they said, this guy is not know what to do. That's why jumping from here and there. But a lot of people really appreciate that in travel from pharmaceuticals to banking and finance, and finally setting up a non-banking finance company here in India before going to London. So it's throughout the journey, I realized that any backbone of any country, the finance is the backbone of any country. In order to uplift any community or ecosystem, we need to have a very strong financial ecosystem. People should get affordable finance to get that risk capital initially, as well as debt or the equity, in order to increase the wealth of that community. And that was a foundation that any rural, urban, any people wanted to improve their lifestyle, they need to have an credit and access to finance. And that was primary idea. I went to London and then started working on this thing. I collaborated with my longtime friend and then also LSE alumni, Swati Sinha. And since then, last 1 year, been promoting. It's amazing journey. A lot of support from the ecosystem, specifically my LSE, and it's amazing. Like it's never day zero for us. Like it's always a starting point and new fresh ideas for every day. Yeah. And yeah, Saleem, we'd be happy to know your journey from last 20 years and how you are, led to the, VC as well as, fintech ecosystem.
So I'm the old hat in the room here. So that's true. I did graduate from LSE with a degree in accounting and finance over 20 years ago. And it basically coincided with, the first boom and bust cycle in tech in the early 2000s, late 90s. I think my graduation from LSE was beset by the publication of Robert Schiller's Irrational Exuberance at the time. So this is a phase when 3G licenses were being auctioned at God knows, like crazy multiples, and you had eyeballs valued at $1 billion each, things like that. And so at that sort of environment, graduating from LSE, having had some sort of a finance background prior, I was torn between going into finance or tech. Clearly wasn't smart enough to figure out tech at the time, so continued on in the finance world, and but did try to sort of get closer to the world of technology by joining Credit Suisse West Boston in Hong Kong as their M&A guy, and focused primarily on technology industry across Asia Pacific. That journey continued for a while, moved to the US, shifted gears, became a real estate investor with Morgan Stanley, did a number of large public-private transactions, but always had an eye to the, or a ear to the ground as far as technology is concerned. So very much focused on real estate investing in the, infrastructure, the underlying digital infrastructure that was just beginning to enable, the big sort of tech move that we've seen over the years, over the decades, I should say. So did that for a number of years, joined a hedge fund business, became an emerging markets focused investor, started my own fund, got bought by a large financial institution, then ended up at JP Morgan's Highbridge Capital, which is, one of the oldest hedge funds, ran a piece of it globally, and then along the side, being an investor in the emerging markets and then having a global remit, I couldn't help but think of mispriced, dislocated opportunities around the world. And Pakistan figured up top. I mean, quite frankly, not in terms of its size, but certainly because of its capacity to grow and its capacity to sort of align itself with regional peers. And started a small venture fund in Pakistan just as a personal passion project, which essentially was one of the first international VCs, if not the first, in Pakistan. So last couple of years, I've been focusing a lot on sort of understanding, having gone through that sort of learning experience, I think it's important to realize that, a country as abundant in human capital as Pakistan is. I mean, I don't need to tell that to an Indian, but you're after India, I mean, we're the third largest, unbanked population in the world. So fintech being a great opportunity in the country is well known. We've got a burgeoning middle class. We've got 130 million people below the age of 30. So there's abundant human capital, but I think where we needed some level setting was on the skills based stuff that needed to be uplifted. So I started advising and then took on the chairman of the advisory board position, and then even more involved as an executive chairman of the National Incubation Center. And the goal there is very much to sort of democratize entrepreneurship, because if you think about it, most unicorns come out of other unicorns, and so on and so forth. And the same thing is happening in Pakistan too. I mean, most of the new startup that you see successful have spun out of places like Kareem, which was one of the first, successful startup stories out of Pakistan. So, so the idea is to sort of democratize that and make the entrepreneurship possibility a reality for those that do not have the access to network or capital, or frankly even skills development. So we're focusing on all those three areas. So I'll stop there, but that's really my journey in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Yeah. So as a follow-up question, and you primarily describe in terms of fintech ecosystems, what if we go in a slightly specific, what kind of opportunity you can see, and that will really help the people of South Asia to to come up, that will help a lot of communities to come out of extreme poverty and start micro enterprise related business. So what kind of fintech ecosystem you can see in this region?
Yeah, so I think both in India and Pakistan, and in particular in Pakistan, the financial inclusion piece is still very, very low relative to the rest of the world, which in the sort of space where we have a refreshingly progressive regulator by way of our central bank. We have a burgeoning middle class. We have a widespread, smartphone adoptions, 100 million plus broadband users. I mean, if you look at the internet usage in the country, I mean, it's phenomenal stats over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's grown 8x in 3 years. So, 70% of the population is below the age of 35. It's a gold mine where we could democratize access to opportunity through financial inclusion. So just at the very sort of outset, I think uplifting the country economically through participation in the financial ecosystem and economy, I think Pakistan represents a fantastic opportunity. Now, what has happened in Pakistan is no different to what happened in other countries or in India maybe 10 years ago. That it's very sort of focused in a couple of, say, call it segments. The segments related to payments. Within payments, you've got the B2B plays, you've got a number of B2C plays that are percolating. And my view is that both top down and bottom up can enable the financial inclusion piece of it. So if you think about B2B, we've increasingly started seeing startups in the space that are intermediating the nodes between which the capital flows. So I mean, there's 6 trillion rupees of financial transactions that happen between a manufacturer, distributor, sub-distributor, wholesaler to a retailer, and the actual the informal side of it, which is not captured by the 6 trillion, is probably 3 to 4 times that. So if you think about that 6 trillion of the official piece of it, I think maybe only a fraction of it is digital, and digital is like, logging into a bank and then transferring the money. So there's a huge value capture that can happen in that digital, digitally sort of linked, space, which flows all the way down to the retailer. And when you enable the retailer to provide access and provide the incentive to provide that access to collect and cash in to the system electronically as well, then you're forcing the point of sale or that neighborhood coca to have access enabled for its consumers, which will bring all the consumers into your sort of digital financial systems kind of the overall link. On the B2C side of things, I mean, about again 10 years ago, started with very simple kind of payment / digital wallet enablers, text-based, and putting money at a kiosk and having money uploaded to your account and doing those basic financial transactions. So that has evolved. We've had now a few startups in the neobank space, which try to aggregate and try to do everything that a bank would do. We've had a number of international players get into the market through these startups. I mean, Stripe bought a stake in one of the fintechs. And so in the payment world, there is tremendous amount of opportunity, and I'm happy to dig into more details on that. On the credit lending side of things, I mean, things are woefully awful as well. I think the penetration of credit is actually very low. Again, I don't want to belabor the stats here, but they're astoundingly low at the moment. And to increase that participation rate, especially whether it's a smallholder farmer in a largely agrarian economy, to connecting people with SMEs and so on and so forth, with less than extortionist type of financial arrangements. I think the whole lending platform or the lending side of the spectrum of fintech has tremendous potential as well. Other than that, like InsurTech and InvestTech are very new to areas. They're quite regulated, but again, in addition to the Central Bank of Pakistan, that's quite progressive. We've seen the Securities and Exchange Commission create recently a number of very compelling propositions with regards to crowdfunding or creating the sandboxes to again democratize that access to investments. And then you've had a number of large brokerage houses come up with their Robin Hoods that they've launched, and they're going on. And then on the infrastructure side, which is all of this has to be linked, the government has also created something called Special Technology Zones Authorities, which is formulating policy at the moment, getting the laws approved, and have come up with a proposal which essentially has been ratified by the parliament that makes Pakistan an extremely compelling place to work for a foreign investor. I mean, they've conducted regional analyses across South Asia, and basically whatever the best practices were, they've doubled down on those. So, where in India, for instance, there's like 5-year tax holiday and then 50% tax holiday on these types of internet and technology-driven startups. Pakistan has just gone with 10%, 10 years of no taxes. And similar things, you keep looking through one thing after another. They're being quite aggressive about it. Now, I hope this can be consistent in terms of applying this over the next several years. But I think that could be a game changer. And then finally, whatever is being enabled right now is essentially because of cheap access to broadband. Again, if you look across, the South Asian countries, Pakistan has the cheapest access to telephony and data of anywhere. But I'll stop there and happy to dig into anything that you're interested in. But tell me, Kapil, about your side of the story. I mean, another thing that I'm very passionate about personally, and actually the first thing I did out of school was to work for a microfinance institution out in Bangladesh. So love to understand how you're, utilizing your prowess in AI to enable access in India through microfinance.
Sure. So let me give you a slightly base about fintech ecosystem around India, how it is evolved, and how the infrastructure has significantly supported. India's fintech ecosystem has been significantly progressing since 2014-15, when the cost of data significantly reduced, started by payment gateways, payment providers using the Paytm, PhonePe, BharatPe that been evolved, that essentially digitizing how it's become increasingly easy for anyone to pay digitally. That was a stepping stone for digitize the entire ecosystems, and that has been significantly supplemented by the efforts of regulators, specifically independent organizations. Like there is Aadhaar has been created, which is seamless digital identity. There is digital DigiLocker kind of digital ID verification is available. There is unified payment interface. India is currently clocking somewhere around 3 billion transactions every month. And if you combine all the transaction, credit card, debit card, I'm assured that is almost 50% of world's transaction is digitally happening in India. And this has been seamlessly happening because of the efforts of the government and efforts of the civil society organizations to complement this entire infrastructure need to be built. And based on that, there are a lot of things are being evolved. India's fintech ecosystem significantly evolved, and now it is going towards specialization. There are insurtech companies coming up. There are regulated tech companies coming up. There are companies who wanted to be only working on a credit analytic side of business. And now, since, as you highlighted, India also a hugely credit underserved market. As per the IFC report, it's more than $1 trillion credit access to credit gap is there. And potentially, where this credit gap is happening? Most of the fintech company, primarily wealth tech, investment tech companies, are primarily addressed to the more affluent class of people who can manage their investment, their mutual funds. And relatively, that market is becoming more crowded, and there are a lot of innovation is happening in order to capture. At the same time, neobanks is coming up specifically for all this ecosystem, how we can provide all these services combined together in a simplified form. And that is what been evolved, but next level of growth from where it will become. That's what we at microfinance.ai we working. India having more than 100 million microcredit borrowers are there. And out of that 100 million, hardly 5% of them are digitally connected with micro lenders. And as we say that currently India having more than 600, 700 million active internet users are there, and it could touch a billion number by down the line 2 to 3 years. So in order to, and this population will significantly help in a growth journey of country like India. And we need to bring them on digital platforms, because it's insanely a necessity for this kind of people to get on a digital platforms. Because can you imagine someone is staying in a rural area of Pakistan or India just for sake of depositing 500 rupees of money to go to branch, waste their entire day? Why can't we build AI models for them to interact and engage with the digital platform? All of them have started using their smartphones. Why can't, and the population in South Asia primarily speak local languages, right? They speak Urdu, Bangla, Tamil, Telugu. Why can't we build AI models around it? So it's become increasingly easy for them to interact and engage with the digital platforms. And that's what exactly we do at microfinance.ai, build simplified mobile platforms which understand the cognitive mindset of the users, which supports local language, and build AI models, train AI models, which automatically capture the local colloquial conversations and transfer into the automated, the required loan. How can they just interact with the platforms so that data gets captured? And how we can bring the ecosystems. So if anyone try to do everything in ecosystem, it's certainly gonna fail. How we can use the ecosystems? There are hundreds of micro lenders are there, but they are not able to connect digitally with the borrowers. And that's why this transaction is not on a digital platforms. Banks and financial institution is unable to lend to these borrowers. And that's why it's first point of, when the payment ecosystem started, they digitized the payment in a micro enterprises, small enterprise. In order to bring this borrower digital platform, and get benefit of the digital ecosystem, we need to bring first them on a digital platforms, and then we can offer the valued bundle services such as a small micro insurance investment product. And that's what exactly we're doing. And we believe certainly the next wave of growth will come from the tier 2, tier 3 cities, where millions of people digitizing their lifestyle, and fintech need to adopt based on their lifestyle. You cannot copy paste standard models from Western India that might restrict to the tier 1 cities or urban affluent. We need to customize, digital tools need to be developed, and then probably we can capture that market. And this borrower brings a lot of loyalty and sustain lifetime value over a period of time. I believe I will stop it here. And
I'm fascinated by how you guys are using AI in this arena, because my sense would be, anyone's sense would be, that the data is so fragmented in this segment that you're serving, that perhaps there's some contextual sort of finance, information that comes along with the payment behavior and so on and so forth. But to, at the outset of that, inception of the underwriting process, to understand that, what the consumer behavior is likely to be, and what kind of social constructs will ensure repayment. It's just a fascinating thing to do. And when you combine, voice AI with that, that's just, absolutely a goldmine of opportunity if you can do it right. So I'm curious to learn, how you're doing that. And obviously you don't have to share the secret sauce, but, just kind of like big picture in principle, how you're achieving that would be, a great learning for us too.
Sure. So what we do in terms of, to automate how they interact with a digital smartphone kind of things, building conversation platform which is particularly biased towards financial transactions. Some particular word is saying in local language, and what could be the meaning of that word in a local language, and then machine can remember that word and automatically capture 20,000, 20,000 rupee kind of things. And that can be said in multiple ways in different ways. So what we do, we collect these standard data from different geography across India in different languages and try to build primary model. And we had a partner with a couple of more AI-led companies to get more and more data at a very fast rate. And as and when we having a more penetration in the market, we also get our own data set from the right users. And I'm not saying that from day one the model is perfect, but we are driving towards that. We are having vision towards that, how we can build advanced technology for this set of users, which is very large. The ticket size might be low, but there are 500 million people who prefer to speak in a local language. And if you add up Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Pakistan, it could go a billion, close to a billion local language preferred users. The applicability of technology is across geographies, and we've been mapping this opportunity across different continents. At the right time, India is the largest market, and very competitive technology market in order to survive and sustain. And starting with that and building a model and in a proof, like making proprietary AI models down the line. And this is a conversation-based part. And another part would be, effective underwriting model, because this borrower do not have an accurate information and data. A lot of alternate underwriting model has been developed for a more HNI people with a high income. At the same time, there are customized alternate credit model need to be developed. And we are primarily working on how we can combine psychometric quiz, financial knowledge quiz, as well as some data which is coming out of their phones, which can combine. And this all loans are unsecured loans. One of the challenge for banks is that why they are not lending to this part of the world, because they don't have any collateral to give a loan. And most of the fintech companies are blended finance company, buy now pay later, is surviving on the rich data which is available from that particular borrower. So creating that data set, bringing that alternative data model for this kind of borrowers, and on top of that, using that alternate data models to complement micro lenders, complement banks, what kind of bank loan offers can be offered to these kind of borrowers. It's relatively long journey, but we see there is huge base is there, which is more than 100 million borrowers, an opportunity to 500 million people who are digitizing the lifestyle and helping them a digital first solution from day one.
I can talk to you for hours on this. So, but we'd spare our friends in audience at the moment, given the restricted time we have here. But I'm fascinated by what you're doing. I think it has potential to be significantly impactful in enhancing that financial inclusion piece of it. In Pakistan, we're trying to do the same stuff. Obviously, microfinance banks now are probably one of the largest and fastest growing piece of the the traditional banking system, and combining that with technology to reduce the transaction costs and to expand outreach and penetration is will certainly be very welcome. So good for you for doing that.
We're happy to. There are a couple of questions. If someone just mention that, we can take it that respond based on the which question. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There is some question in or I directly read out from the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead. Just read and pick what you think is appropriate for either of you, and go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So there is a question from Namita. Is there a possibility of business collaboration between two countries? What do roadblocks look like? Yeah, I believe Saleem, you would be right to answer on this point. Yeah.
I think, frankly, without being political, it might actually be more suited to your side of the border. I think we're very open to collaboration like this, people-to-people exchanges as we're having right now. I don't think there's any constraint or any issues with that. Obviously, unfortunately, right now, I think the politics and is not aligned for some reason. We don't need with that be a separate discussion, I suppose. But look, we can learn from each other. The people are the same. I mean, I think one of the things that I learned working for Dr. Yunus at Grameen Bank in Bangladesh was, the needs of the poor are the same, whether they're Indian, Pakistani, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, whatever religion. Yeah. These things are economic opportunity and lack thereof is religion and politics agnostic. So I think there is great opportunity for us to collaborate and learning from each other and uplifting the entire region together is beneficial for everyone because rising tide lifts everyone.
Yeah, great. So let me take another question. It's a question from Sonia. How is the fintech bridging the biggest barrier, which is digital divide? Since we are talking about unbanked. So I'd be happy to answer on this point. Especially unbanked people, one of the biggest enabler for unbanked people is that now the cost to avail smartphone as well as internet is significantly reduced. So ultimately, somehow they came on a digital platform. They might be using YouTube, WhatsApp, and kind of share, TikTok kind of things. So somehow they came on a digital platforms, and they would be the potential customer for financial ecosystem, financial services, or any other service domain things. Either they will learn about how to interact in a smart digital world. Otherwise, technology needs to go there and customize their platforms, right? And probably who gonna win these things? People who go there, use the technology to make it enabling. Someone is speaking different languages, someone having different social barriers. How we can incorporate that into the technology, build artificial intelligence and machine learning models, which understand this kind of problem and specifically build for unbanked people who are using smartphone, but they are not a conventional urban-oriented people. If we build this kind of technology, give them comfort, this platform is speaking with them in local language, that give a lot of personal comfort for them to use it. And we need to use technology as enablers to build this kind of platforms. And once that's gonna happen, and we have seen the good result of this kind of technology, and a ground in India, we've been working with cooperatives, micro lending institutions. They're facilitated by technology which is built for this kind of demographic people. And a lot of technology is not being focused to these sectors. But now, since fintech is opening up, there are a lot of cutthroat competition is there. People wanted to explore different market, and this competition will help a lot of fintech players evolve and see the different market. When they see the different market, they need to build technology based on the pain point of the borrower. And I believe that is happening. We've seen a lot of fintechs are coming, and the pace at which things are happening, we would see tremendous growth in a country like India to unaccessible, not only opening the bank account, but getting credit and valued financial products through digital tools.
Yeah, and if I may add, I mean, I think a remarkable thing that our central bank was able to do, which is long overdue, was to create this infrastructure layer called RAST, which is enabling digital financial payments and linking of different products into the system, because the barrier to entry was quite high previously, getting an EMI license or PSO, PSP licenses and so on and so forth. Forget about like setting up a bank. I mean, just, the capital intensity was very high. So now, all the fintechs that want to create these products for access enablement can plug directly into the infrastructure layer of the central bank to enable those financial transactions and, and so on and so forth. And I think, again, on the Pakistan side of things, the move is going to come from both sides. It can't just be B2C. I think the B2B part may actually maybe far more successful in enabling that access because of the, not quite the trickle down effect, but it's the fact that there is a formal large cluster of, businesses that if they start utilizing, digital access and it flows down the value chain downstream and upstream both, we'll have an opportunity for consumers to connect digitally as well. And that sort of bringing people into this whole, ecosystem of digital financial system will enable, opportunities of accessing markets, accessing capital, and being able to sort of cut out the middleman, which is a big part of the problem at sort of lower sort of strata of the economy. So yeah, I think
we do have a
couple of more questions for you. I think from the Indian side.
Yeah.
So are there India stack in your company and so on and so forth?
Okay. Yeah, so Ankit, just ping us if you want to wrap it up and have a discussion with a mixer. We would be happy to close that and into that. Yeah. And
look, we can talk for hours. So let's bring in our friends who are smarter than us.
I mean, feel free to take another 5 minutes to answer some of the questions you think are appropriate. But I mean,
definitely
you can manage.
Sure. So in terms of India stakes and other, see, like India has built amazing like public infrastructure. From Aadhaar, India Stake, you might be heard OCAN, Open Credit Enablement Network, Account Aggregator, and all this is significantly gonna help a lot of people, a lot of businesses to get an affordable and accessible finance and other financial products. And obviously, there is a missing piece at this stage is how effectively we're gonna use this data in terms of safety and safeguard. There are DEPA, Data Empowerment and Architecture Act, which is under consideration as a draft. But at the same time, there is huge opportunity to get in a consent-driven data sharing model. And that's what exactly Account Aggregator kind of platform, which is currently in a beta test phase. It's open public platforms, which has been enabling a lot of people to share their data in a more secured and safe way. And when that public act come into the picture, as well as we having a solid infrastructure to consent-driven data sharing is happening, that will significantly enable the entire ecosystem. And obviously, this is a gray area at this stage, but down the line, there are a lot of work is happening in terms of legislation, in terms of how the ecosystem, how the public infrastructure is being built, and everything is working on this in this place. But we need to see how fast government moves and make it data-driven legally. And when it happens, it will significantly enable digitally sharing the data legally and reduce a lot of drudgery which is happening. You need to give a PDF, printed copies of your bank account details that will be nullified. You can, within a fraction of time, you will share data. And another point I wanted to edit here is that will help the platform like decentralized distributed ledger, we would say blockchain. So that will help a lot of people to have, independently connectively, we do a lot of ID card, KYC for all the bank account verification, Amazon payment, everything is, you need to do multiple times, know your customer. When you're having a solid, data sharing architecture will be there. A lot of blockchain oriented technology will come into the picture, and that will allow user to share what data, and which is, decentralized data, and user giving that consent to share that decentralized data with a third party. And that will reduce lot of drudgeries and a lot of loopholes in the ecosystem, like sharing collaterals. I having house as a collateral, but I need to do multiple rounds and rounds to verify is it property or mortgages or not. But once the data sharing architecture will come, there are a lot of opportunity will come in a blockchain domain, as well as complemented by the digital currency as well. And you're gonna see a lot of things are happening in this space in coming years, I would say.
Yeah, and I would totally second that for Pakistan too. I think from governance down to just verification of these simple sort of transactions, so you could really be enabled through blockchain. And luckily, I think we've had a couple of successful entrepreneurs that are of Pakistani origin in the space, and they're beginning to reinvest back into the country and are starting the work there. Stacks Pakistan is an example of that. So I think that'll be a huge opportunity. I see another question talking about what's the biggest opportunity in India and Pakistan from a fintech perspective. Look, I can speak for Pakistan. Look, it's a virgin territory. I mean, we have 10 significant fintech players right now only. I think there's room for 110 easily. So we're just starting. So regardless of where you want to be, I mean, you can pick a point that you want to, whether you want to go upstream or downstream, B2B or B2C, whether you want to be in lending space, wealth tech, invest tech, savings, whatever. I mean, it's completely virgin territory. One of the most successful neobanks strategies that have been deployed in the country came from a guy who was just visiting from the US for a wedding or something, some friend's wedding. And he came and he said, look, what on earth? This is a country of 220 million people with no access to digital finance per se. So he's in the process of incubating a venture that has raised $7-8 million this year. An American guy doing it in Pakistan, and taking advantage of our openness, of our regulatory regime and enabling environment with respect to capital and dividend repatriation and things like that. So look, doesn't matter what it is that you want to do. I mean, whatever your core offering that you best understand that you have a competitive edge on, I think one should just dive in.
Yeah, so I completely agree on what Salim said. It's day zero for the country like India and Pakistan to explore the fintech space. We might be seeing the Flipkart, Amazon success stories in last decade, but I would say there will be multiple unicorns out of the fintech ecosystem. You can't say that one winner will take entire market. There are huge opportunities, and there are multiple unicorns possibilities, and we already seen the success of a lot of Paytm, PhonePe, Zerodha kind of things are already there, and there are hundreds of domains areas where innovation need to be done, and there is hugely untapped market in country like alone in India. There are more than $1 trillion credit gap is there. There is just a simple credit gap, but if we exploit that market, it would be multiple $1 trillion opportunities are there. And every space you can insurtech, wealth tech, insurance penetration is less than 7% in country like India. So anywhere you can just put your hand, there is enough opportunities there. You need to be very thorough with your background, what you need to bring, what demography of users, and speak with a multiple customers. Is it a pain point? Is it pain point? Get early result of your product. And I would say the investor will be run behind you at some point of time.
Great. So what's the plan, Mariam and Ankit? Do we want to open this up for our friends to join and have a little mixer?
Yes, so we're going to do that now. But just before we do that, I just wanted to quickly thank both of you for a really interesting talk. And thank you to Mariam and to Ankit for helping us organize this event. I would like to invite all of you to our next event on September 3rd. It's a talk with the LSE professor, Dr. Wim van der Steed, who's the head of the accounting department. The talk is going to be on the new ways of working, implications for organizational control. The link to register for this event is in the chat box. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and also follow our YouTube channel to watch any events that you may have missed. You can find the links in the chat box again.